This episode is brought to you by Beast Grip, mobile filmmaking gear I actually use when shooting in the field. If you're filming on your phone and need something solid, modular, and built for real productions, Beast Grip's rigs, lenses, and accessories are designed to hold up without slowing you down. Beast Grip gear has been used on films including 28 Years Later, Left-Handed Girl, all the shot on iPhone Apple commercials, and many more. If you're ready to level up your mobile workflow, visit beastgrip.com and use coupon code PASTPRESENTFEATURE for 10% off. Beast Grip. Keep your footprint small, keep the images powerful. beastgrip.com. Welcome to the Past Present Feature Podcast. Gille Klabin discusses Weekend at the End of the World, his follow-up to The Wave, and the deliberate choice to build a second feature that didn't require waiting for studio permission. Shot in 12 days on a sub-$300K budget, the film was designed around creative, logistical, and financial control. Gille reflects on the lessons he learned from The Wave's release, where traditional distribution left him frustrated by opaque marketing spends and limited transparency, and how that experience reshaped his approach to ownership, equity, and rollout strategy the second time around. Gille discusses the current indie landscape not as a lament, but as a tactical puzzle, drawing comparisons to films like Shaun of the Dead, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and The Cabin in the Woods. He discusses the balance of tone, heart, and genre, and how surprise and emotional whiplash can be a strategic storytelling tool. He also outlines a 50-50 equity split between investors and cast and crew, a flat-rate pay structure on set, and a belief that if independent filmmakers want a more just system, they have to build it at their own scale first. Make the movie you can actually control, learn the business as deeply as the craft, and let your specific weirdness become the thing that carries you forward.
I've always said Mizell, but is it Mizell?
It's weird because growing up, my dad would always, like, his answering machine would be thanks for calling Brad Mizell. But then when we would say the name by itself, we would always say Mizell. Or if I'm in class, it would be a variation of the two. So I really don't know. I know that it's French-German, and it comes from, I believe, the Moselle River Valley over there in the French-German border. So that's all I really got for now.
Yeah, because German would be Meisel, and French would be Mizell.
Exactly. Now, is it Klabin or is it Klabini?
You know, it's weird. I have responded to so many variations of my name. It is technically Gille Klabin, but absolutely nobody's going to say that. So it's Gille Klabin, but usually in England and in America, they say Klabin.
Okay.
And because of how my name is spelled, I get everything from Guile, Gille, all of it. I respond to all. I don't even correct people anymore, honestly. I just, whatever somebody says, I'm like, yeah.
Didn't you say one time you had a meeting with The Rock and Dwayne Johnson now, and and some executives kept calling you Gille, and then you guys had a little moment together?
He was such a sweetheart. It's unbearable, but I was just directing some promos for the second Jumanji movie, and, you know, you've got like The Rock and Jack Black and Karen Gillan, Danny DeVito, Danny Glover there, Nick Jonas. And, you know, promo shoots are hell for everybody involved. Like, everybody gets like 2 or 3 minutes to pull off all the stuff they want to do. The actors are there. They've already been paid. The movie's done. Like, they don't really want to be there, but they have to. So you're really, really moving. And I was being introduced to Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, and Karen Gillan for this sort of cross-promo spot with Uber. And the exec who was introducing us called me Gille. And he was like, oh, so this is Gille. He's going to be directing your thing. I was like, it's Gil. And he was like, right. And then he kept talking, and I mean talking, like not saying anything, but just like, I think just wanted to talk to the famous person. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, okay, well, I'll leave you in the capable hands of Gille. And he walks away, and Dwayne turns to me. He goes, twice? He said it wrong twice. And I was like, God, you're just so sweet, which is crazy because your arms are the size of my entire torso.
And I told you I worked with him on that movie Snitch, like years, like 2011, 2012, and that's where I met my child's mother on that shoot. So, you know, it was all just in the middle of fucking nowhere, Shreveport, Louisiana, in the wintertime. And it sounds terrible, but it was probably the best shoot I ever worked on because the right people were there. It was so fun. And like, he was part of that. He was so cool and sweet.
It's such an important thing, and I really feel like that's you know, I've worked damn near every single position on set, and it's not a job when you're appreciated and everybody's remembering that we're making a movie, and that is fun as hell, and it is rare. We're lucky. And it doesn't matter how hard the work is, you're having a blast. Whereas some of the like better paid jobs I've done, I'm working for such insufferable ghouls and being taken advantage of and being underappreciated. And you're watching other team members get treated badly. And it just kind of sours the whole thing. I was like, no matter how much money you're getting paid, it's not enough. It's not enough to suffer like just the incredulous, inhuman treatment of your fellow filmmaker.
No, it was a tale of two movies where I did Snitch, and it was like I was a grip, and it was great. It was just the right people. And then I went over to this movie, Percy Jackson, the second one they made, and it was this huge movie, and I learned so much, and it was like it could have been fun except for the crew, the fellow workmates. Sorry guys, y'all sucked. I mean, it was just everybody was very serious. I'm just like, we're making a movie here. The lighting is great. Everything's checked. The boxes are checked. Why are you still so serious? And then it was just one of those things where, like what you just said, it's just like sometimes it's, the right batch of folks that just can get over themselves and move on about their day. I'm going to read your bio. Gille Klabin grew up in a combination of the USA, Israel, and Austria. I didn't know that. Eventually ending up in England, where he began making videos at the age of 11. With stop-motion toy films in his past, Gille graduated from Westminster University's film school and worked as a production assistant and location scout while directing music videos for unsigned bands. Your colorful, energetic work, which I can speak to, eventually got him directing videos for several major labels. You did that Aoki video. That's what comes to my mind. The first one with...
I did a bunch.
Yeah. What's the first one you did? It was the shots were amazing, where you had like, you and Aaron Grosso, your DP, you had like this camera rigged, I believe, to like to the front of...
We had a body mount on Steve, and we had him crash onto the hood of a car and then match that same composition and had him fall into a swimming pool and then mask those two cuts. It's one of my favorite tricks we've ever pulled off. But yeah, that was a video called Singularity.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That had Ray Kurzweil in it as well.
That's right. Yeah, also just a cut between like a solid thing and then water. I did that once too. Actually, Grosso helped me with that little $300 video we did for Aloe Black. But it was just this idea of this guy stepping into a water puddle, and then right when his foot hits the water, he cuts into him falling into a pool. It's like this is just the solid to water, but also the solid to liquid, but also just that edit, that cut is so. That notion of that cut
transitions, man.
Yeah,
transitions to me they're such an important thing because. At least for me, like I like to make quite sort of kinetic moving things. And I look at it as one of the central tools to sort of taking your audience through an emotional journey or through an emotional moment. And when you can create a transition that dictates the mood they finish that one scene into and go into another one, or subvert their expectations and surprise them by taking them into something new, it's such a great way to sort of buy another few minutes of their undivided attention, and also like keep your hand on the wheel of the emotions and the feeling and the energy, the central sort of vibe of that you've been carefully crafting. You're trying to take them on a very controlled journey through feeling and thinking different things, and that transition is such a powerful tool to launch them into the next one the way you want them to be.
I think you're really good at story world creating story world, like especially like where you just pull it into this world that I've never seen when it comes to The Wave, your first movie, and also Weekend at the End of the World, which is your new movie. And both of them, to me, it's like just this visually arresting space, setting, this world that totally makes you forget about the seat you're sitting in. For me, that's like my first take. And by the way, let's tell them how we met. 2011, 12, something like that.
I think it was 11, yeah.
I need a camera package and a DP for a music video. And then, long story short, Craigslist and then you and Grosso came on and knocked it out of the park for this video this very small budget video that I did, and that's probably one of my favorites still, to be honest with you. But you guys,
that was a great shoot, man. That was
thank you.
It was wild because well, man, thanks for hiring us. I was freshly in Los Angeles. I just moved here from London, and me and Aaron were basically working together as a camera team with this little red package we had. I think it was a red one back then. I don't think it was the Epic yet. Epic was 2012.
I believe so, but then we paired it with Grosso's Super Speeds, which
yes. Lenses. Yeah, those Zeiss Super Speeds. I love those lenses. I think it's his dad's, and I think or his uncle's, and he's just about to sell them. They are from 1983 or 84. and it says on the glass, on the camera housing, it says either fabricated or built in West Germany before the fall of the wall.
Oh, that's right. Wow. Wait, he's about to sell them for real. We have a shoot coming up on Saturday he's going to help me with, so I might have to get
I heard.
I
think you guys he's going to come out with some Cook anamorphics for you.
Well, we were going to do Cook. I might hit him up, though, because, I mean, the thing is, it's like, I don't want to be nostalgic, but, I mean, maybe how do those super speeds look on the Alexa? I'm sure they look great, right? I mean,
insanely gorgeous. The only reason to bring the Cooks is if you want anamorphic, but the downside of that is they're this big. They're from the head to chest. They weigh an absolute ton. Yeah, it's the anamorphics. I mean, all anamorphics, but the Cook anamorphics. These 2-to-1s. They are
gigantic,
burly, and that's what we shot. That's what we shot Weekend at the End of the World on. Just because I love how they look.
The Cook look is a real thing, right? It's kind of what would you say, like a creamy? What would your take be on the Cook?
There's something for these anamorphics. I don't know if your standard S4s or any other Cook lenses look a certain way that you can pair, but I find short of like Panavision anamorphics or Hawks, these ones give this beautiful like softness that almost feels like you're using film, but still sharp enough that you can pull off like laborious visual effects without being like, okay, well, everything's so morphed and everything's so distorted and rounded that I can't actually get a good track. I can't do a 3D camera track because everything's so distorted that the laws of physics that a 3D camera tracker is trying to adhere to just aren't sticking.
Yeah.
So
it's like a three-dimensional
middle ground.
It's more immersive. I mean, I would say Panavision G series for me. I love that we're talking about lenses for a moment because why not? Panavision G series, I just remember like if I see a movie and I'm like I'm trying to guess what lens it is, and sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But it seems like every time I'm like, ooh, that might be a Panavision. Which series? That amazing look on that. Those like for me, if gun to my head, that's what I would say I would want to shoot on if I had.
I have never had the luxury of shooting on a Panavision camera body and Panavision glass. Every time I'm watching a movie and I'm like, God, this is unbearably gorgeous, I'll go to like what's the website called, Shaun like that. And I'll look it up, and 9 times out of 10, it's Panavision glass because I don't know what they're doing. Like, I mean, again, every time I see something that hurts me with its beauty, it's being Panavision glass.
All right. So back to your movie and Gille. Okay, so you did The Wave. When was The Wave with Justin Long? Great movie.
So we shot it at the end of 2017. Finished all of post, probably like around springtime 2018. Maybe into the summer, and then submitted it to festivals like crazy, and then it had its festival premiere at Fantastic Fest the following year, 2019. So there was
just before COVID. Ooh.
Yeah, there was a long dance of at first. So we were entered into a bunch of festivals, and we were trying to find a distributor as well because we were panicked. We were trying to make money for our investors, and it was my first film, and I come from that British sensibility of sort of like, you earn your way up and you don't really speak out of turn. And so I didn't know anything about film distribution. I'd had feelings about it. It seemed quite predatory to me, but also I was just not equipped or experienced enough to offer anything else. So we were just taking meetings with any distributor who was interested in us, but we were waiting on a festival premiere, which we hadn't had. A lot of people loved us at South by Southwest, but I was another straight white male director and they didn't want another movie like that. And I was like, honestly, fair. It was also at the time, where, I mean, I'm Israeli, Jewish, anti-Zionism, but nonetheless, to the people who care, I'm a Jew. So, like, I was getting the white man treatment while also being increasingly scared of being a Jew in America. But either way, so we didn't get into these festivals, and I was getting, like, kind of worried.
They didn't have a box for that specific situation, though.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It has been so imbalanced in favor of the status quo for so long that we needed not only a correction, but an overcorrection. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you look around now, like it seems like most of the nefarious forces are back in play and just doing things as they were. Like any one of my my filmmaker friends who are people of color, some of them were saying, I had one friend being like, I feel like I'm only kind of getting in the room because like I'm a gay black woman, and I was like, the door has cracked open for the first time ever. don't think, run through it.
Yo.
Run through it right now, because these guys will slam it shut the second they can. So like, whatever, it's an overcorrection. It just got a little bit harder. And that's also like what informed my second movie is basically, long story short, we premiered at Fantastic Fest at the end of 2019 after a long dance with all these different distributors. We didn't have a festival premiere. We then, in a panic, signed with these distributors for the Wave. 2 weeks later, we found out we were premiering at Fantastic Fest.
Wow. That's how it
which
went.
is a bit of a bummer because, we arguably wouldn't have signed with a distributor, because then we would have gone in, as a free agent to Fantastic Fest.
Sure.
But that's also under the assumption that the old model still works, where movies sold at festivals, which I think is really only just happening at Sundance.
And even now, it's not so much, apparently.
Yeah, and there's also like
2019.
Movies...
It was like the last. I feel like little bit of just that old world that was fading. As far as selling it, because Fantastic Fest is legit. It's a huge festival. I mean,
it's massive. I mean, it was there. Like our film was premiering next to the premiere of, I think it was Jojo Rabbit's premiere. I think it was Parasite, Knives Out.
Damn, nice.
There were huge movies.
Studio
obviously,
films.
My imposter syndrome was just overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm just like on the red carpet, and there's like Taika Waititi and Ryan Johnson and Bong Joon-ho. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Let's go, baby. Yeah.
Either way, it was incredible.
I didn't know that. So you had 2 weeks. So you signed 2 weeks before. I mean, again, you had just a crystal ball, and it's all about just like trying to anticipate. But yeah, you can't command Z real life.
Yeah, my God, can you imagine?
It's not a timeline. Okay, so anyways, The Wave, kick-ass movie, by the way. People can watch it wherever, right? Just Google it. It pops up. What is it?
Yeah, I think
SVOD anywhere?
It's on Prime, it's on Peacock, and some other places. It's also on AVOD. You can watch it on Tubi if you can stomach commercials.
Which, briefly, how do you feel about AVOD and just the current state of how one watches a movie? And I'll just say this real quick. I have no issue making it as easy as possible for people to just simply push play to watch my movie versus pay $2.99 for a TVOD or pay for a subscription that you might not have. What are your thoughts on AVOD, I guess?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I make stuff because I want people to watch it. The joy, I mean, I remember the first music video I did when I was in sixth form in England, which is, I think what you call junior year in high school in America.
Okay.
And I made a music video for my media class, and an auditorium full of my peers at school watched it, and they laughed at all the bits that I was trying to make funny. And that high has not scratched the surface of any substance I've tried. Like that rush, still now when I get messages on like Reddit or YouTube where somebody has seen my movie, you will rarely find a comment on the internet that I haven't found and responded to, because it means the world to me. I love it. So in regards to how the movie gets seen, like, look, I want the people who put money into the movie to make their money back. And I want people who own equity in the movie to get a little, a drip feed of money here and there. But ultimately, I want people to watch the movie. Like I found The Wave fully ripped in HD on YouTube. And I just went into the comment section and thanked them for sharing the movie. Like I'd rather people see this thing that so many of us worked so hard on, rather than just sort of stand my ground and be like, no, you have to rent it for 99 cents. Ideally, if you can afford to, if you put money in, if you pay money for a movie, you're going to enable filmmakers to make more films. But hell, watch it for free. And then if you enjoyed it, come back and rent it.
And it gets to a point where it's like, what's 99 cents or $1.99 or $3.99 going to really do more? What's it going to help more than hurt? Because it's kind of a paywall. Psychologically, we've been conditioned to not having to pay for movies now. I will, but I'm a filmmaker. But most people will move along to the next thing, and it's like, here it is for free. Watch it.
With AVOD, yeah. Look, with AVOD, it's free, but you have to watch commercials. Which is funny, like we've come full circle. Yeah, we've gone full circle, but now, well, I guess it's free cable instead of paying for cable. But I'm all for it. I want to make my film as available as possible the world over.
Love learning about filmmaking? There's no better film school than actually watching movies in theaters. Revival Hub is your guide to specialty screenings in Los Angeles. Classics on 35mm, director Q&As, rare restorations, and indie gems you won't find on streaming. Revival Hub connects moviegoers with over 200 venues across LA, from the major revival houses to the 20-seat micro cinemas and more. Whether you're an aspiring filmmaker or just love great cinema, Revival Hub helps you discover the screenings that matter, the ones that'll change how you see movies. Visit revivalhub.com to see what's playing this week. That's REVIVALHUB.com.
Which we'll come back around to, like, the conversation that I'm most excited about, the topic I'm most excited about with this, which is how you're planning on getting your film out here, right, with distribution, hybrid model, and as well as the marketing strategies, creative marketing strategies. So it's an interesting space right now, 2026.
It is. Look, I feel like we're navigating this weird thing where everything's gotten harder, everything's gotten less lucrative for the filmmakers. What we're expected to pull off is bigger than ever before, and the budgets to facilitate that are smaller than ever. And the way in which we can make money feels more trampled on, like distribution deals feel more predatory, and streaming deals feel more predatory, and everybody's up in arms about bonuses and payouts to tap when big movies go to streamers. But in the same regard, there is a sort of a more egalitarian opportunity in terms of, like, anybody can put a film out. And anybody can run an effective marketing campaign and raise awareness for the movie. And anybody can actually pretty comprehensively find the exact people who will enjoy their movie. It just means more work, which, of course, every junction I feel like our generation of filmmakers has come up to has basically meant, like, okay, well, to get what the previous generation got at this junction, you're going to have to do at least 5 times the work.
And it seems like the shift has gone from, it's not who you know, more so now that's who knows you, right? Because we can get through the gates, but then it's like, okay, we're available, everybody. We're push play, and then it's like, well, so are a million other films, you know.
I feel like the who you know is evergreen. You know, this
it's still, of course, absolutely,
it's still important.
Yep.
Who knows you is very, very important. Like, you know, there are, like, look at these 2 movies that just came out or are coming out, like Iron Lung from that Mark something, that YouTuber. He had a following of what was it, 30 million YouTube subscribers. So he is the flagship for Who Knows You, because he is in and of himself a series of digital billboards. Like, your fan base is there. Your film is coming out to a hungry audience.
Markiplier, survivors of the apocalypse send a convict in a small submarine to explore a desolate moon that's an ocean of blood. That's Iron Lung, and he has had a full theatrical release across America, I believe.
Which his fan base petitioned AMC to put the movie in the screens. He basically he created the demand for the supply, which is great. Like, that's, again, I'm a firm believer in anything to do with the arts. There are examples, there's case studies, but there's no blueprint, there's no roadmap. You can do all sorts. Like the movie Hundreds of Beavers got its cinematic run and is still booking theaters, like in the same way like Rocky Horror Picture Show is still booking theaters. It's still booking theaters, and this all happened after it was already released. And people show up in costume and do stuff. Like, it's inspiring, but it's just also, like, it doesn't apply. Like, I don't have 30 million YouTube subscribers. I have never pursued getting followers. I've been one of the only few things I'd be sort of, like, I guess, traditional in my approach of, like, I want to make good stuff, and I want that stuff to live, to operate on its own merit. But then, you know, there's just 1,000 ways to do it. It's just which one has the workload that you're happy taking on.
And I share that with you, as far as I think we just both want to make stuff where we can look back at it and it has rewatchability, replay ability, right? And, like, we're proud of it, and it stands up on its own. And, you know, it reminds me of, like, the Shaun Baker's path, you know, where it's like, even just, you know, about the Takeout in his first 3 or 4 micro budget films, where they got Criterion releases and got, you know, and they're having all these retrospective screenings now. But it took 20 years to, or maybe 20 years to get to that point where people had to go back. But the films were already there. It was just a matter of time until they were kind of culturalized. Yeah.
Now, I feel like everybody puts pressure on these. Look, yes, when your movie's brand new is pretty much guaranteed to be the time where you can hope to recoup most of your money on it. But it doesn't mean that's the end of your film's life. I literally yesterday responded to 3 comments from people who had found my first film, The Wave, randomly through an Amazon Prime suggestion, and liked it so much that they found a comment thread on Reddit where I was talking about the movie and sought me out to tell me, which makes my whole week, but it just shows that your film doesn't go away.
You know, I think there's a lot of ageism when it comes to film sales, especially if you're talking to a buyer or whatever. You know, me going to AFM or EFM or wherever and trying to talk to these people. A lot of them are like, if it's December, what is it? If it's only a month old, but it's January and your movie is December 2024, that's a whole year later. That's a whole year. That's a year older film, and it's hard to sell. You know, I mean, that's a ridiculous example, but I think there's an ageism in certain aspects to the film business when it comes to your movie. But there's also such a wonderful, I think there's a retrospective movement more than ever, maybe right now too, because the lack of material. Like you're seeing a lot of theatrical retrospectives coming, like a lot of old films coming back, which I'm able to, at least in LA.
I'm all for it. Look, if you want to re-release The Mummy in theaters, do it. That's so much better than remaking it again and just regurgitating a piece of IP. Re-release this thing that's already good. You know, there was a mandate from all the studios, I think it was a couple of years ago, that said no original IP. With all the movies that they're considering to make for that year, was like, we are not making an original movie. We are only making something that has an existing fan base, has an existing piece of intellectual property. And that's a recipe for people not giving a shit anymore.
What do they want to get? The dad and
garbage.
the son? They want to get they want to get the quadrants. They don't want to just take the chance of something unique. What is it?
I think by and large, these studios and everything has largely become, in sort of unbridled capitalism, it's just become a game of risk assessment and returns.
Right.
So they look at it as like, do we roll the dice on something and then market it and spend twice the budget of the movie marketing this thing and trying to find a fan base? Mm-hmm. Or do we put a little bit of money, or do we put our lot of money into this thing that already has a fan base, that basically has this marketing apparatus already deployed?
Mm-hmm.
And then their risk is lower. And also these people's job security is frightful. An exec can have a 2-year shelf life at a company before they're booted.
It's crazy how quick they got to move these days. It's almost like how welcome to being a crew member, fella.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But anyways, at the end of the day, the shareholders own the studios, right? That's kind of what it is. It's corporate owning. But where there's like this front door where it's jammed up, there's always this side door that kind of comes into play, right? Where it's like, where is the space that we can play as maybe more of a niche, what do you call it? Low budget, micro budget, non-studio, independent filmmaking.
It's just independent film. But even so, like, there's always going to be the outliers. There's always going to be people like us, and by us, I mean probably millions of people who want to make something and will just do it outside of the sort of afforded opportunities. But there's also just incredible movies that are made within the studio system. They're just made in spite of it. Like, I remember listening to a story that Superbad was rejected. I can't remember what it was. Seth Rogen in a podcast, he was saying like rejected like 30 odd times, which, at the time it was made meant going back to studios that had already rejected it, but there's new execs there and trying.
Okay.
And everybody just saying like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And it's the highest grossing high school movie ever made.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And like, look at an incredible movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Does not feel like a studio film made by committee, but also they scrapped and fought for years to get that film made. And that's, these things that move the goalposts, things that affect the sort of the landscape as a total, I don't think they ever have an easy ride. I don't think, somebody shows up with a script that's sort of out there or different or ends up being something loved. And right away, the execs go, yeah, I'll roll the dice on you. Of course I will. Why not?
You got to work your way inside the system in some way too, right? You can't just be some stranger off the street, right? Would you do that? Would you put millions of dollars onto somebody if you didn't have a little something to grab on? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple business. I remember I was a PA on a movie in England, and it was a working title movie. And I remember looking at the paperwork. I was an office PA, and it said like, oh, working title was, I believe it was owned by Universal. And then I was printing something off for the line producer or something, and it said like Universal, a General Electric company. And I was like, wait, so this movie studio is just owned by a power company? It's just like, at that point, then it's just a business. And in business, you're not sitting there being like, yeah, but this film got my teenager through a tough time. You're sitting there being like, what's the ROI? How much growth do we maintain? It's boardroom shit, which is the antithesis to art.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we could talk about it all day long, but it's good it's good to visit it, and it's good to talk about it. And you know what? The bottom line is, we're filmmakers and we can make films, and the technology's gotten great. I mean, we can that part's gotten easier as far as we don't need
That's
some sort of
one of the only
massive
good parts.
footprint. It's one of the good parts. With it came oversaturation. But either way, here we are. You're still making movies, and I'm so glad you made your second movie, because I feel like the second movie is harder than the first movie for sure. You know what I mean? Where the first movie, you're like, it's like, you have all the hope in the world. You haven't been destroyed yet. And I feel like the second one, you know how hard it's going to be. And to still do it anyways is respect.
And this second one was so informed by the many pitfalls that I fell victim to on the first one. You know, chief amongst them, like, this second film was by design going to be something we didn't have to wait for permission to do. It was very much like, I've got the gear, the enthusiasm, and the lack of self-preservation skills to endure making another movie. Because I'm a you know, as well as writing and directing, I know cameras, and I know editing, and I know visual effects, all of them to like a high enough degree to actually charge somebody. So, I mean, we were very much going to do this movie entirely by ourselves. And I'd learned brutal lessons on my first film in regards to distribution and marketing. And one of my many day jobs is working as a trailer editor and making social media assets for like, you know, Netflix movies or Amazon movies. So I was like, okay, I think if we make something very small that leans into our strengths and take on distribution as well, then we can actually get our film out to people. Because the biggest problem with my first film is that nobody heard of it, because our distributors, I don't think it was with malice, but they put money in marketing efforts that didn't raise enough awareness for the movie. So 90% of the comments I get about my first film is like, I've never heard of this. I love this. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. I've never heard of this. And so that was on the second one. I also on the second one wanted to make something very broad and commercial, in the sense that as we were navigating this hellscape of an American chapter, I was like, I want to create something that is a small, explosive piece of escapism that has heart, but that doesn't stop the train to lecture you on something. It just moves and it's fun. I needed and wanted to make something fun, just like a wild ride you go on. And my writing partner, Clay Elliott, we'd done all these short films together and like sketches, and we'd won some festivals with him. And you know, he was considering giving up acting, and I've had such good fortune to work with some incredible actors, and Clay is up there. He just doesn't have the name recognition or the body of work, but I've worked with enough actors to know when I'm working with somebody who's special. So Clay was my secret weapon. And I compelled him. I was like, look, we need to write something that we can pull off by ourselves, that if I have to do it all by myself, it can be done. And I knew
it's going to look way
film,
more than it actually is, right? Which nobody knows how much. No viewer, unless they've done some deep dive, behind the scenes deep dive, they don't know how much you didn't have, right? So, and you know how to shoot. You know how to do visual effects, like not just but like it's up there, it's top tier. So that right there, yeah, and you have a good actor / friend, and you have a good script. It's like you do have a chance. Why not just pull the trigger, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, to me, just a lesson of working within your sandbox. Like, my sandbox was, we're not going to have much money. We don't have money to put crew up. We have to be able to pull this off in Los Angeles, and let's like lean into our strengths. So, you know, I don't think my VFX look that great, but they lend themselves very well to the sort of suspended disbelief world of the movie.
Went for probably how much volume you had to do too, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was a really embarrassing part, because I basically stayed awake for 4 months doing the visual effects on my first film. And my wife said to me, never again. And I was like, yeah, look, this new film, I'm really going to have to do all the VFX alone, but I'm just going to make it a smaller load for me to carry. Turned out to be 100 more VFX shots than The Wave.
You had to trick yourself almost in a way. Right?
Yeah.
And her.
But I did manage to do it quicker. I didn't end up like, I mean, on The Waves VFX, I was really getting like an hour and a half to 2 hours of sleep a night. And on this I was getting, 5 or 6 hours a night, not watching the sun come up, and I knocked out a lot more VFX, and I was also just better at it. Things got so much better, like beyond everybody talks about AI in terms of like generative video and generative images, but AI is an umbrella term that encompasses a lot of things, like even things like camera tracking is using artificial intelligence, or even things like, I don't know how nerdy I can get here, but like rotobrush, right? So if you're in After Effects and you're trying to rotoscope a character on screen, the roto capacity capabilities of After Effects these days, and this isn't like an additional plugin, this is just comes in the box with After Effects.
Okay.
That rotobrush is using artificial intelligence to recognize the human form, to recognize motion blur on a passing hand. And so I was cutting characters out on a background that was defocused, like pretty browny green woodland. And we've got hair being cut out. Now, again, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect.
Right.
But that tool allowed me to roto them out like they were on a green screen.
Damn. Yeah. Let me read your synopsis before I forget. Weekend at the end of the world. When Carl's girlfriend rejects his proposal and shatters his dreams of happily ever after, his childhood friend Miles takes him away to his Meemaw's cabin to regroup, come together, and help flip it before the property bubble bursts. And Miles and Carl are forced to face both their metaphorical and very real demons. After opening a portal to the Allness, the realm between realities, the weakened Meemaw guides her heroes through various trials as they help her gain the strength she needs to close the portal forever and save our world. You have Thomas Lennon in here of Reno 911 fame, correct?
I mean, that's
many things. I mean, I think about Night at the Museum. He's a great screenwriter too, isn't he? He's a good screenwriter. I love how you use him, but you don't like lean on him unnaturally.
It's crazy. Like So Cameron Fife, who came on to produce, and he plays Miles.
He's great.
He had done a movie with Tom, and Tom is he's so pure. He loves doing stuff, right? And he loves working with people who he likes. Cameron sent me a screen grab. He sent Tom this like long email basically saying, hey, I'm working with this director, Gil. This is his previous film. We're doing this movie. We're hoping to shoot in September time. We'd love you to play this role. Here is the script. Here is the pitch deck. And here's links to previous work, et cetera, et cetera. Sent it. And then 2 minutes later, 2 minutes, and I don't care if you're the fastest reader on the planet, there's no way you looked at any of those materials. Tom just responds and says, I'm in. Because he had a gap. He had a gap in his September. So he was like, oh, okay, I'll play around and I'll just do so. I'll have some fun. And then he read the script and he dug it. And what's more is, he's such a good writer and such a good performer. When he came to the table read, he pitched stuff that, I don't think he realized just what an easy sell everything was going to be, because everything he would pitch was just a brilliant idea. And he pitched, for example, Hank, his character basically gets possessed and then gets turned, initially in the script, he gets turned back to like a split between his possessed demon, sort of what's called a herald, and the old version of him. And he had lines. So like he was like a very friendly neighbor, and he would talk about all the things that the demon would talk about, but he would do it in a really friendly neighbor way.
Okay.
And Thomas, after the table read, he said, I think it would be funnier if I was stuck more in the demon and it was much more grunting rather than sort of eloquent sentences. And I was like, whatever you want, man. Like if you want to play this completely frozen, like you're Thomas Lennon, you can have whatever you want. But the guy slashed his line count by 60%.
Oh, wow.
All in favor of doing something that he thought would be funnier and he would have more fun performing.
And that comic gag is funny. Just even the notion. Also, it seems like more realistic. I use quotes, meaning he's transitioning from a normal human to like a possessed one. So why wouldn't you be trying to deal with it? But also, it's funnier probably with the grunts. I don't know what
it's so much funnier, and he had a lot of fun with it. And there's a shot towards the end of the movie where we cut to a room and Hank is pushing a sofa away, and we're going for a second take, and Thomas just calls me over. I was like, hey man, what's up? He's like, I think I should be pushing the sofa with my head. I was like, well, that's hilarious, but I wouldn't ask you to do that. And he's like, no, I think at this point Hank is kind of like coming undone, and I think his actions that he does in these different moments, and I know it'll be funnier, but I think it makes sense for him to do that. And I was like, yeah, and it's genuinely still gets a laugh every single time it cuts to that shot, and it's just Hank pushing the couch just with his head, and it looks hilarious.
What would you say your directing style is? I know that's probably a weird question to have to answer, but what would you say? Because you seem very Considerate, very polite. Do you break for tea? I know you don't.
I'd say bordering on childlike enthusiasm. Look, I mean, I come from low budget music videos and I come from making something with nothing. So I really love and care about every single facet of it. But also, I'm one of the fortunate or unfortunate people who's been wanting to do this since he was 10, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not lost on me when I'm on set, like talking to an actor whose face I've been watching for decades in movies that I've dreamed of making. That surrealism is not lost on me. So I'm living out my childhood fantasy while at the same time doing something that I've diligently worked at, getting good at. And it's very exciting for me. Like, look, I think I'm an excitable, passionate director. I care a lot. I'm very nerdy about every aspect. Like if an actor wants to sit down and break apart every line of dialogue and why each syllable is what it is, I will do it with a smile on my face because I love doing that. And in the same way, if, one department wants to pitch something to me and they're as passionate about this story I'm trying to tell as I am, I will sit there with a smile on my face and get into it as well. There is no department that I'm just like, yeah, you just do your thing. Everything is a decision. Everything can affect an audience. That high I felt when I was 17 and I was with an audience watching my creation and seeing my intentions have an effect on them. It was divine. It was magical. And so I'm just always in pursuit of that.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's such a fun, enthusiastic experience for people working with you too, whether it be cast or crew. And like anybody out there that hasn't made their film yet and they're thinking about it, or they've made one, or there is an unmatched high that you get when you do experience it. Whether it be like whenever someone, like an audience of people, is reacting to a moment where you intended when you were initially sitting there by yourself at the edit or maybe writing, or even just being on set and then just having those moments of collaboration with a cast member or a DP or whatever, and just feeling that energy and feeling in the moment, feeling in that present moment, like you just, something happens cellularly, like deep down.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's very exciting.
I remember this moment for me. I think it was day 3 of The Wave back in 2017. And it was like we cut a shot and I had no less than 7 different departments come up to me, ask me a question, needed an answer. I gave the answer. I turned, another one talked to me. I turned, another one talked. I turned, another one talked. And none of it was getting to me. I felt like what I'd seen athletes talk about in movies where they talk about being in the zone or being in in a flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having this very calm moment of like, this must look so stressful, but none of this is getting to me.
Nice.
I have answers for everything because to overcome my own anxieties going into the project, I had to understand everything comprehensively just to feel confident enough walking onto set and to ask people to do things. I remember I was wearing black shoes at the time because I looked down and it was a white stone floor, and I'd done little like rubber, like, when you skid to a stop or something like that, like when the rubber of your shoe comes off on the ground,
Sure.
like I was spinning on my heels to the degree that I made little rubber marks on the ground. I was just turning around because like I would say something to makeup,
I see.
and then an actor would turn around and I would spin around to talk to the actor, and I would spin around and talk to my DP, and I was like, wow, this is my little like basketball court flow moment. I was having a blast. It was the only moment of like athleticism I'd ever felt. I was like, oh, this is, for whatever chaotic reason, this is my sport. Like this is something I can do where I can be in a very high stress situation and it doesn't get to me. Yeah. Whereas I liked playing basketball as a kid, but if the pressure's on, I'm not going to sink the shot. I'm just not going to, because I'll be like, no, not for me.
Yeah, inside of chaos, and like what it takes to the mental stamina and just the presence of mind, But it's also you're the one that knows this film more than anybody, and it's like your moment to flex, kind of, right? I mean, for me, like whatever it might be, whether it be, I know I have a Q&A that night, or I have something that I'm anxious about that because I want to get it right, or filming or whatever it might, the day before school feeling that you get before any big shoot every time, it seems like. But my point is, it's like the anticipation is what fucks with me, and I'm to the point now where I cannot wait to be inside the thing that I'm anticipating, because then I'll be okay. But it's the lead up that tends to less and less now, but tends to get me a little more anxious. And so in a moment like that, where there's people coming at me and I'm like, I feel like happy to be in that space. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like in the same thing, because I always cut what I make. Although I worked with Lana Wolverton, who's my editing partner on both my films, and we cut the films together because I love her opinions, but also editing to me is central to, I mean, it is the bottleneck through which your story comes out. Like it's not one of the elements of the story, it's the final element of how the story is told. And I edit so much that I'm editing in my head while I'm shooting. And it's a weird thing, like somebody was asking me about it. They're like, how do you get ready for that? And it's not like an athlete who goes off and, raises their stamina or drops weight for a fight or something like that. It's like, this just so happens to be what works well for my strange broken brain.
Mm-hmm.
This is my thing. This is my thing, not necessarily, well, earned it through experience of having done it many, many times, but I did it so many times because I love doing it. And now it's easier and easier for me. But then also, the other thing is preparation. Like for The Wave, I worked with this incredible storyboard artist, Peter Beck, took all the storyboards, digitized them all, they were already digital, they were done on an iPad. And then I made an animatic, a 2D animatic with me reading every line of dialogue. And so there's a very horrible 60-odd minute version of The Wave that's just cutting some 2D pictures with the occasional picture moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a bunch of VFX tests for some of the more ambitious, crazy scenes and transitions. And so I had kind of watched my film in his best way I could before it existed, so that when I was on set, this is a world I'd lived in a fair amount. And I shared all those things I'd made with the rest of the crew, anybody who wanted to see it. And that level of preparation allows you to navigate whatever disasters occur, on a shoot where it feels like you're not, there's a lot of stuff that's outside of your control.
You're already above your base. You're not just like doing the base level thing by not knowing. You already know what you're.
I'm not building on the day.
You can build on top.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm adapting, and it worked so well on The Wave, and that's what informed my actions on Weekend at the End of the World. I leveled up the mania of my preparation. Like we didn't have the money to hire anybody to do storyboards, so I was doing all the storyboards myself, and then I was trying to use elements, and then I even tried to use AI to take my stick drawings and turn them into something prettier. I ended up spending so much time trying to get various different AI tools to do something simple. Like I was like, I want a wide shot of the woods. I want it lit by the moon from the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. And it would just be like the moon in the middle of a shot and it's a medium. And I was like, okay, so this, but wider. They're like, oh, you're right. It's not wide. Here it is again. Same shot. I was like, okay, the moon is in the shot. I don't want to see the moon. And it was like, oh, you're totally right. Here it is from the side. Moon's still in the shot. And I eventually got to this point where I was like, I'm spending more time trying to reprompt this one bit of AI that I think it might be faster for me to make this.
It wants to please, but it ain't quite there in many aspects, right? And when the AI takeover fully happens, they're going to come for me first because I am not very polite once
I'm always very careful. I'm never mean to the AI, but they're definitely going to come back and get us.
I love you, AI. I love you. I love you.
I think they're a great time-saving tool, but they're not good for hyper specificity. So what I ended up doing is, as we started getting locations on Weekend at the End of the World, I would go to the locations and I would use a photogrammetry app on my phone, and I would capture 3D scans of the actual rooms. And then I would bring those into Blender, and I would make 3D models of my actors, and I would basically make my film in an incredibly haunting, poorly done animatic.
That's what I wanted to say, because it's like the first step is probably besides the script, is location, right? It's space that you're going to shoot in, to know the geography of the space. And then you're taking that and you're putting the scans into the computer, and then you're working from there on what you can do, what you want to do, figuring out what you want to capture.
Look, we shot this movie in 12 days, right? The entire shooting budget before post was $200,000. And we had 12 days, and they were going to be 12-hour days, just out of respect for the crew. And it was all within the 30-mile zone of Los Angeles.
12. That's impressive. It's fucking impressive. 12 is crazy tight. It's crazy tight.
Yeah. And the whole crew, I think at its most swollen was like 26 people.
When did you shoot this? What was like the actual month and year?
It was at the end of September and the first couple of days of October in 2024.
You're still under 300K across the board, right? Like,
Yeah, right now, all said and done, I think we're at 296,000. And we're probably going to spend an additional almost 50K on distribution and marketing costs.
I'm excited about this part for sure. What are your plans, I guess, generally or specifically?
This is the thing, is like, no shade to distributors. I just think that the model that we used to operate on, which was, filmmaker makes they raise money from investors. The investors have a huge ownership of the movie. Filmmakers break themselves making the best movie that they can. And then they go on a festival circuit to try and raise awareness and get some PR. And typically they'll sell to a distributor, because a distributor will take on sales, which is everything from getting you onto the platforms to, trying to negotiate a deal with a streamer for a second window of distribution, going to film festivals and trying to sell to foreign territories, all forms of putting it on direct TV, everything. That's all sales. Then there's marketing, which is, 9 times out of 10, most distributors, especially at a lower level, are hiring marketing agencies. And that's really an umbrella for two things, which is the actual making of marketing assets, be that your poster, your trailer, or social media short videos, Instagram reel stories, all that stuff, creating all the marketing assets. And the other branch of that is media planning and buying, which is, I'm going to buy advertising on Google, on YouTube, on all meta platforms, and I'm planning it to be like, okay, for the month leading up to the thing, I'm going to spend this many dollars, and I'm going to target these people and build up my audience profile of knowing who's responding to the movie. And the other aspect is PR, which again is typically a distributor hires a publicist, and they will get you write-ups to magazines or appearances on podcasts or YouTube reviewers, any form of publicity which you're not actually at the reins of, right? So so sales, marketing, and PR, they're kind of like owned by these distributors. The problem is these distributors, we'll be talking forever if we get into it, but it's like a record label advance, right? They say, they used to do this thing where they gave you what's called an MG, a minimum guarantee, and they say, here's a chunk of money. This is us having skin in the game, but we recoup that money first and we own a percentage of your movie. The problem is you don't really get to audit how they're spending that money. So a distributor will say to you, we're going to spend $50,000 on marketing, which on the surface, you're like, well, shit, that's great. That means you're going to spend $50K making the dopest assets you can. And you're going to spend so much money on social media, cleverly targeting the exact people who like my movie, that we're destined to see a return. The reality is, most of them, because they have overheads and costs, they're going to go to the lowest bidder. They're going to make the cheapest assets they can. And they're going to buy advertising as cheaply as possible. And then you're going to get this bill saying we spent $50K, and then they have to recoup their $50K before you see a penny. And none of this is transparent. So
they're incentivized to do the bare minimum almost to put more in their pocket.
Absolutely. And they have overheads and they have employees. They've got big machinery to move. So my thinking right out the gate was like, okay, I'm going to make all the marketing assets. I also got this incredible company, Paradise, that I work for many times in Los Angeles. They came on board. They're like, look, we're going to cut a bunch of stuff for you.
Max?
It used to be Max. Mikey Przemski.
Okay.
And he, they did our teaser that's out, and they also did our trailer that's coming out very soon. Nice. And also Mikey's just like, whenever I'm making assets, I'll send them to Mikey, and it's like he's in the room with me. This dude has given me so much of his time. I'm forever in his debt.
Amazing.
But basically, the considerations being, I'm going to take over marketing. I'm going to at least resign to learning about media buying and planning. We'd already entered into festivals, and I knew domestically, and I also knew that most distributors are using aggregators to get their films onto the main platforms.
Just they're middlemaning it. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have 30 million subscribers. I don't have 1 million subscribers.
And whether they get you on or you get you on yourself, it's not going to be any difference as far as where you get to and how you get to it.
Well, I'm more speaking to the point of a theatrical run, right? Like, I don't have the following to warrant a theatrical run. So I'm not trying. Instead, what I'm doing is a very, very focused digital release. I want to make the film affordable. I want to target the audience like crazy. And I want the kind of people who are going to, I'm not trying to do a bait and switch. There's so many movies that are like, buy it today for $25. Like,
right.
But that to me is an advert saying, I want to get the most I can because this film doesn't have a long shelf life. Whereas I'm backing
which
our
is the
film.
opposite of I care about you, the viewer, and your
Yeah.
experience. In a way.
I'm instead like, look, when our film comes out for the first month, you can buy it in 4K for $10 and you can rent it for $5. And then after a while, we'll see how that goes and we'll bring those costs down.
Yeah.
But because we're using an aggregator, that purchase, that $10 purchase is split between the platform and us. No other distributor. That means our investors will get the second we start getting dollars back.
Yeah.
Is the second our investors will start getting dollars back.
Question for you, equity wise. What is the equity situation? Is it, what's your setup? What's your waterfall look like?
So this is pretty standard. They're called producers' points and investors' points, but let's just call it percentages, right? So 50% of the movie is owned by our investors, and our investors is 17 different people we managed to get money from. Each one of them at a different level. Some gave 100,000, some gave 1,500.
Nice.
So we had all these different levels. So that's 50% owned by them, and the other 50% is owned by everybody who got involved in making the movie. And when I say everybody, I mean, apart from people who day played, everybody who worked on this movie in an earnest way has a percentage or a fraction of a percentage of the movie. And I think a lot of them don't know that yet. And they're going to find out, hopefully, when the movie starts making money.
Very cool. Didn't the Duplass brothers have done things like this, right? And also the new Matt Damon Affleck, didn't they did some sort of kind of situation. Similar.
Yeah, and I don't know how. I know that movie on the Rip they did that, but I guess in the sale to Netflix, or if they figured out performance bonuses, because I think the whole point of the 2023 strike is they're saying like there's no performance based payouts happening here. So I understand that there's a split, but I mean, I don't know how a split works when you're selling directly to a streamer. But with us,
what are the details of the details when it comes to that deal? Yeah, but either way, the notion of the crew, I love this so much, especially spending 7 years being a crew member, and it's like you just feel like you're swept under the rug for $238 a day. When really it's like, but I lit that. I helped make you feel something, you know. Anyways,
this film doesn't happen without the crew, and also to that point, look, we didn't have money, and it was unreasonable to pay everybody varying scales on such a small budget. So we just said right out the gate, we said to every single person on the movie, like, look, everybody is getting paid the same, from the top billed actor to the PA to everybody got the same paycheck.
Because there's such a class setup, isn't there, in this film structure? There's literally a below the line, above the line. Yeah, that's so nice. That's so cool.
Well, look,
everybody
man,
feels fair.
It's still it definitely creates an atmosphere of respect and admiration. But also, it's not a lot of money. It's not enough money to survive. So if everybody's not going to get enough money to survive, they're going to get the same amount of money.
At least you're all in together.
And there is differences in equity. Like the reality is that the star power of Troy and Belisario and Thomas Lennon brings substantial impact to the viability of this movie making money, and their equity reflects that.
Sure.
And I co-wrote, storyboarded, produced, directed, did all the visual effects, worked with Lana and did cuts and even sound beds of design. I worked my ass off, and I'm overseeing all the distribution, and I'm doing all the marketing. And you're forgetting about
stuff that you did, probably.
Yeah, and I don't have the time. So I'm getting more of a percentage than the PA is.
Right,
but I'm also one of the only people who didn't get paid. I mean, I've given 5 years of my life to this movie.
But let's just say, as far as by how many days or whatever hours you put in, it's fair across the board, right?
It's just logical. Like, if people in our position don't operate on a meritocracy, then if we don't do it, you're never going to get to experience any sense of justice. Because if you're waiting for a big studio movie with inbuilt mechanics that don't support you to suddenly treat you fair, you're going to be holding your breath for a long time. So if we don't do it on our tiny little budget, then it just doesn't get done.
The aggregator, who are you using?
So I did a ton of research on this stuff, and look, and we were still speaking to distributors up until about 5 months ago, just because as sure as I am of like all this decision is all based on data and previous experience in my last movie. The thing is, you don't get access to other people's data, so you don't know, the veracity of these efforts in other people's regards. Having said that, we decided to go with an aggregator just because distributors I was speaking to who were offering to buy the movie, they also used aggregators. And you can use a bunch of them, but the one we went for is Bitmax, Bitmax. And the big reason I went with them is it is very much a service. They don't take equity in your movie. They don't take ownership. It is
just
a
upfront
hands-off. Yeah, it is like, this is how much it would cost you to put your movie on iTunes, Amazon, and Google YouTube. And then we will send you hyperlinks, and then you run your own campaigns. And then here's a link to our PayPal, and you can see transparent bookkeeping on how much your movie is going to make. It's hands off, and that's what I wanted. And this was the promise we made to our investors in the first place that facilitated even making this movie. You're saying to investor, typically in movies, you're like, okay, invest in this, and if the movie makes this much, and we'll get a distributor, blah, blah, blah. You can't promise them anything on that money. Whereas now I could say to investors like, look, if you put in this money, I am going to oversee it with my team. This is our previous work. And there will be nobody standing between the movie making money and you getting your money back. There is no distributor. There is no anybody else. Bitmax gets the hell out of your way. They run a great operation. They QC, they create your captions. They're reasonably priced, and you can get your money on the big platforms.
Yeah, and it's just taking it to market, really, and getting it ready so people can see it. And you know what? I was doing a hybrid with the last doc that we did, and I was able to go right to upload to Amazon directly. I think you still are, like Amazon. I think Prime Video Direct. Yeah, no, it's you still want to go through a Bitmax and get all that quality control and get No, I mean, and you go get all the other platforms because you don't have direct access to them. But it was like a wonderful kind of realization of I don't need. It's almost like getting it out of your head that you don't need somebody else to do that for you when you can do it yourself, right? That's
like, and also like notion. All these things, they operate, like all of these distributors are operating on a reality that filmmakers are tired, scared, and desperate.
It's predatory.
It's in a way. It's predatory. Yeah. And again, I don't think a lot of these distributors, I don't think they're bad people. I think it's just the way it is. Like just.
And I've had distributors say stuff. People are tired and scared, and they don't want to continue on, or they don't want to maybe do that angle, and they want this person to do it for them or this company.
I cut 9 different 6-second bumpers. I've cut 4 different 15-second spots. I've made 2 threes. I've been doing variations and different things and making all our assets, doing all our laurels and our festival announcements. I'm making assets like I do for some of my day jobs. Not every filmmaker wants to do that, and I don't. And, okay, of course. That doesn't mean you have to go with a distributor. You can still self-distribute and then hire a marketing agency to make all your assets, to do your media planning and buying. Like I ran some test campaigns on Google Ads. I'm running one right now trying to attract more people to subscribe to our YouTube so that when we do release more stuff, we already have eyeballs on it.
Nice.
And so I'm learning Google Ads and I'm learning Meta Ads. And I just now found a guy who works in media planning and buying, and he's now educating me. It's incredible.
Nice.
And I don't think everybody has to learn that stuff to be independent. I'm doing it because like we cannot afford to spend more money. Anybody can do it. Just hire a marketing agency instead of getting in bed with a distributor who will charge you for that marketing agency, and you'll never get to see the books.
They're going to capture all of your potential income. Or return. And also, it's just plug and play, right? You don't have to do any sort of exact thing this way, this way, this way. You can still say, hey, maybe I do want somebody to help me with this component, but over here, I can do that myself, et cetera. Maybe what are my strengths as a filmmaker? And also the analytics. I mean, I'm very curious once you have them, what that data looks like. And then being able to already reposition your marketing, probably.
So on the Wave, for example, about, 3/4 of the way through the year, I was getting really frustrated because it was very clear to me that our distributors were not spending smart dollars. They were not targeting our audiences and stuff. And it was 2020. COVID was rampant. I think the new wave had just dropped. It was Omicron or Delta or something. People were going to be back in their homes, trying not to die. And I wanted that film. I wanted my movie to be seen. I was still desperate to pay back our investors.
And it was a good time to have a movie on VOD, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And And I ran my own campaign. I spent like $5,000 of my own money. I hired a friend of mine who worked in marketing PR, and I actually ran a targeted campaign. And I started learning stuff from it. And I was like, okay, average viewer retention was only 6 seconds. So I made a whole batch of new spots that were all only 6 seconds long. And then I saw that spots that were opening with Donald Faison's face were outperforming other spots. So I made a new batch that were all 6 seconds, all started with Donald Faison's face. And then I saw horror was outperforming comedy, and so on and so on and so on. And I was just adaptive. I just kept going. And I let, as a creative person, you kind of don't really want to be restrained too much. But honestly, the ever shifting arena in which I was playing in just became a fun game. I was like, okay, I need to make 6 second spots that are exciting. And they have to open with Donald Faison's face, and they have to be horror. And okay, so those are the rules of the game. So then I just played within that game and kept trying to outdo myself.
What were the results you saw? Uptick?
They outperformed by 90% every single time. Every time you leaned into the data, it just did better and better and better. And there's there's entire marketing agencies, like again, working with Mikey at Paradise, I'll pitch him 3 or 4 different 6 second spots I've made. And he'll just say like, look, you want to open with a famous person's face because you want somebody to have something human they can connect with and familiar that
it opened. Yeah. People we're all that way, right? It's like, oh, that you can just kind of grab a hold of it and have a familiarity, which does let you guard down. And you all of a sudden you start to consider the movie more. Maybe I will push play on that. Unless you're like, I don't like that actor, which never seems to.
But nobody's saying about Thomas Lennon, so
not at all.
Good in that regard.
And the thing is, if an actor has a market value, then they're probably just pretty fucking likable across the board, anyways. Usually, past films. Any past films that most inspired you in general as a filmmaker, and were there any films that inspired Weekend at the End of the World?
It's really funny. So for me, I loved dark comedy and I liked stylish visual storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I grew up in an era of like Michel Gondry music videos, and that stuff is just so playful and fun and different. And also Terry Gilliam, his kind of like almost campy, surrealist stuff was really, really fun for me. I think particularly for Weekend at the End of the World, I think the 2 movies that we get compared to a lot, and certainly the movies that inspired me the most would be Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
And from being in England, which was like very silly, but the stakes were still high.
And the filmmaking was very high as well. Like, whoa.
Yeah. It was dripping in style, and it had lovable idiot protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
But the stakes were high, the danger was real, and above all else is like the heart was there. You cared about these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a slightly sillier way, but I think Tucker and Dale versus Evil achieved that really, really well.
Okay, nice. I never saw it, but I know of it.
It's good. I don't think it's like as punchy and stylish of a movie as Shaun of the Dead is.
But a very small movie, right? Or smaller movie.
Yeah, smaller movie. Yeah, but yeah, I think Shaun of the Dead's budget, I think, was roughly £6 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's not nothing.
Let's see what Tucker and Dale's was, $5 million. So they're very close. Either way, it doesn't mean whether I saw it or not doesn't mean it's good or not. I just didn't. For some reason, some of those movies just sneak by.
There's so many. But then and other movies like Cabin in the Woods, I thought was a really, really fun, subversive, dark, stylish, cool thing. I love surrealism. I love. The big thing for me is I'm desperate to be surprised. I think one of the biggest things that really pushed me, I really, really enjoy, I love silly, I love dark, I love the combination of dark and comedy together because I feel like it just yo-yos your emotions so well. Like I'm enjoying this piece of levity, I'm having a good time, I'm giggling and laughing, and then suddenly something dark happens and it yanks me the other direction and I'm tense, or I'm in a tense situation and I can barely breathe, and then just like one moment of levity hits and it's like my entire body just untenses for a second. It's such a it's a ride, and that's oftentimes when I'm watching a movie, I want to be taken on an adventure, if that's the kind of movie you're tuning into. So I feel like that's the movies past wise that affected me a lot. And then a lot of the considerations were just budget, physical reality, temporal reality, and physical reality.
Sure. Yeah. Amazing. Nice. That makes sense. Okay. Last question. Give me like a filmmaking, like a life lesson. If you could go back in time and tell your younger filmmaking self anything right now, what would it be?
I think so I have two, and I think I said this when we did the video podcast.
Yeah.
For me, so a practical one would be, should never be work shy when it comes to pre-production. And you should really, even if you can't draw badly, try to make your movie as many times as you can before you do it the expensive way. Like film it with toys, draw it, make an animatic, learn simple programs like Blender, fuck it, play with AI if needs be. Put your movie up on its feet. Do table reads, for the love of God, do table reads. There's so many actors happy just to get involved and to sharpen their tools with a table read. Get your film up on its feet as many ways as you can. Watch your movie as many ways as you can, so that when it gets to the time where there's a ticking clock and money is burning, and every single minute you're on set, you're working off a knowledge base that already exists rather than sort of figuring it out on the fly. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been on set working in different departments, or working in a camera department where a director will show up and be like, so how should we cover this? And I'm like, before you showed up, motherfucker, that's how you cover this. Not when we're all here sweating and suffering. You don't figure it out now. You figure it out before so that you can pull off something cool. So that's my technical one. And I think the more artistic one is you got to make a bunch of stuff, and there is so much pressure, and I definitely experienced it too. There's so much pressure, and we've talked about this. So I was talking about this with some of your earlier movies, to do the thing. You should make this high-end looking Apple commercial, or you should do this punchy, cutty Tony Scott style, or this Nike commercial thing. There is some weird in us, and I think the more you make, the more you find out your own idiosyncratic weird. And you got to cherish that and honor that. In my humble subjective opinion, the more I listen to the very strange frequency of weird coming out of my brain, the better my work has gotten. The stuff I'm most proud of is the most honestly, for better or worse, honest, silly, vulnerable, experimental, ambitious stuff I've made that was true to the strangeness that is whatever chemical my brain is. And the more I've tried to do what I think people want and what I think people expect, the more I've made lifeless trash that has barely covered my bills.
Same, girl. And you know what? That's the value of going through these things, I think. It's not about just, okay, I tried, I quit. It's like, okay, I tried. That's not really a great thing that I like to look back at, but I'm going to now tweak what I do moving forward. I mean, without my experiences that I won't name here right now, I wouldn't have had the good experience, the successes or the things that I look back at finally now because of that. It's the same thing as somebody who shows up and isn't prepared to shoot, maybe because they never had to be prepared. They never valued the dollar or a few dollars that they had because they always had it. And that's the value of having no money or having to struggle to then take that on and appreciate and then make more out of what you have later on.
Well, it's also just like there's just no substitute for time. There's no substitute for experience. Don't beat yourself up. You're meant to suck. If you start off great, that's incredible, but you're still starting off, so presumably you want to get better. You're going to get better over time and experience. So just don't be afraid of sucking.
Take a breath. Yeah. Relax.
Like I was terrified I'd learned every facet of filmmaking before I finally took a chance on writing. And only in accepting that, my brother actually gave me some great advice. He was just like, just do a vomit pass. Just throw up a pass of your script. It's going to be a lot easier to come back to it and edit it. And then I did, I think, 13 drafts of my first script that gave me the confidence to believe that maybe I could write. Then I made the wave, and I essentially saw what translating my thoughts from a page that was written for me into the final product, that there was a through line. And then I wrote a script 2 years ago that I sold a script. And that was just before we went into doing Weekend, which I had co-written with Clay. But it was only all that process of writing embarrassing drafts and having people throw back stuff at me that made me believe that I could even write. And then I sold a script and then made a script that I'd written. And now I don't have any delusions about my capacity to write. But that didn't happen right away. That happened through a series of humbling.
The resilience of it all is really the thing that we always keep coming back to with every guest that I have. Resilience, try to just keep on keeping on.
You got to love doing it. And, you talked about my directing style. I remember on The Wave, Donald Faison came up to me. He was like, the end of week 1, he was like, man, I hope you don't change. I was like, what do you mean? Like, change what? He was like, you're just so enthusiastic. You're so passionate. It just reminds me like why I got into doing all this. And I was like, buddy, this is not going away. The world, life has told me, seek financial aid elsewhere many, many times. I do this because I can't not do this. It is, nothing gets me as excited. Shit, man, when I was doing the VFX on this, I remember I was walking around my house, I was brushing my teeth, and I just figured out something to do with a particle engine that I could make particles on the edges of the portals look better. And I was just standing in my bathroom smiling and brushing my teeth. And my wife comes up to me. She's like, what are you smiling about? And I was like, I think I just figured out how to doctor the particle system to get exactly what I wanted. And she was like, you are a fucking nerd.
It's you fucking nerd. No, but it's like the moments where your brain just where you don't force something, like putting together a puzzle or something. It's just like, where your brain just gets in this probably a different state, I'm sure, where like then whatever you were trying to figure out just kind of comes to you in like a most wonderful way.
It's always when I'm trying to fall asleep.
Well, a lot of times for me too, it's been when I'm waking up, like right when but I'm not completely awake yet, where I'm but I'm still in that probably, I don't know, what would you say that state is? Is that
the twilight, like the twilight of consciousness, it's like, I'm sure it's called like delta or theta brainwaves or something.
Okay. Yeah. That's a whole other thing. Hey, it's a fucking good conversation. I appreciate you.
Mate, thank you so much for having us. Honestly, like, this is, to get the word out of a movie it's myriad efforts in all sorts of different ways. And I love your podcast. I love the stuff you focus on. It's the stuff I care about so much. And I admire so many of the filmmakers you've had on, and I feel wonderful that I took all those compromising pictures of you and I got to exploit that into, getting to join the ranks.
You sent me all the copies. You promise?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
What we just did, every week. It's a literal fair trade exchange every time I have an interview to really speak about our process. We get a few Q&As and a few interviews, maybe, and that's it. But it's like, no, we have more to say.
There's also like this weird thing where I feel like, because oftentimes as a director, you're pitching to get a job, let's say on something, and you're told you're pitching against somebody else. So there's like this weird skewed idea that we're somehow in competition with one another.
Right. And
the reality is we're not. Marcus and Gil are never going to make the same thing. We're not ever competing. And you're not competing with, even if there's a similar filmmaker who makes similar stuff than you. Still going to be their own stink on it and your own stink on it. It's like, we're just not in competition. So that's why I love speaking to fellow filmmakers.
Totally. And it's just, it is all love. And you know what? It'd be an interesting exercise. I don't know what the apparatus would look like, but to give two different filmmakers the same script and just see what kind of movie they would make. But they would be different. I'd rather be inspired than envious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And it's literally just a shift of a perspective. And then you're using one source of energy instead of another one, but all of it is still using energy. So I would rather be inspired and have part of my heart get driven and be like, well, for one day, hopefully somebody's going to watch one of my movies and think the same thing of like, damn, I want to make something like that. That movie just made me feel, and I want to make somebody else feel the things that this movie made me feel. I've certainly been conditioned to compete and there's very few things that have been taught to me that was like, celebrate, find joy in other people's accomplishments. Anything else told me just like, you got to work while everybody else is resting and you got to dominate and blah, blah. And all that led to was me going gray in the hair much earlier than I should have done because I was working myself into the grave.
As opposed to let's help each other out.
Please like and subscribe to this podcast and follow us on social media at Past Present Feature. And let us know in the comments section what movies you're watching. Thank you so much for listening to the Past Present Feature podcast, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Introducing the Past Present Feature Film Festival, a new showcase celebrating cinematic storytelling across time. From bold proof-of-concept shorts to standout new films lighting up the circuit to overlooked features that deserve another look. Sponsored by the Past Present Feature podcast and Leica Camera, all films screen in Hollywood using Leica's Cineway projector. Submit now at filmfreeway.com/past-present-feature. The past, the present, the future of film, all under one spotlight.